Bienvenidos a una nueva clase de español para extranjeros. En la clase del día de hoy vas a aprender cómo utilizar el tiempo futuro en español. Vamos a aprender principalmente tres cosas. La primera, cómo utilizar los tiempos del verbo en español, specifically in the future tense. La segunda, cómo conjugar las dos formas de futuro que existen en el español. Y la tercera, cómo utilizar expresiones de tiempo en español. Hello everyone and welcome to this new session to learn Spanish. In today's lesson you will be learning how to use the future tense in Spanish. The first thing we're going to do is to understand a little bit about the notion of tense in Spanish. Number two, I'm going to teach you how to conjugate the two main forms of future in Spanish. And the third part will be about time expressions in the future. Now, the first thing you need to learn when you're talking about tenses in Spanish is actually how to say tense, right? In Spanish, we have one word for that, and sometimes people get confused with it because it also means time. On the board, I have written this sentence: el tiempo futuro en español. It means the future tense in Spanish. Now, in Spanish, we use the word tiempo. It's the same word that you use to talk about time, to talk about tense. So, the translation of tiempo in English to refer to this grammar topic would be tense. In Spanish, we also have tenses, right? This applies to different languages, not only for English and Spanish. And here I made this diagram of the three different tenses that we have. The first tense that you learn at school and the first tense that you learn in language lessons is this one, presente. Este es el tiempo presente. This is the one we use to talk about actions like daily routines, everyday activities, like general info, like about your age, about your origin, where you come from, about your also your physical description and like kind of states things. And also here you will find what you call in English present continuous, and in Spanish we call it gerundio, something like that. Okay, later I'll explain in other videos what this means. Right now, provisionally, you can learn that presente is here, actions in this moment. This is the past. We call it pasado. In some other grammar books and some other places you can see it like pretérito. And of course, the most important topic for today is futuro. As you can see here, that's how we say future in Spanish, futuro. Todos los verbos en español contienen una terminación que es la que forma el infinitivo del verbo. So all actions in Spanish, all the verbs in Spanish can be expressed in a simple way, in a simple form, and that way we call it infinitivo in Spanish, of course. This form is what you can find sometimes in dictionaries, what you can find, for example, at the back of a book. You have sometimes like a list of verbs, and these verbs are never conjugated. They come in simple form. Now, the form of these verbs always have, at the end, they have they can have they can have ar, they can have ir. So whenever you find one verb like expressed in this form, you know that it's an infinitivo, okay? It's an infinitive form. And accordingly, you need to change this infinitivo into different persons. Here you have singular, here you have plural people. Such as in this form, we put it here, I put it here because this is the present tense, and this is how you change it. This is the verb to eat. In Spanish we say comer. Y si quieres cambiar este verbo en las personas que lo hacen, I mean, like to talk about the person who is performing this action, you should say it like this. You say, yo como, tú comes, él come, nosotros comemos, ustedes comen, and ellos comen. So this is I, you, he, she, and also here you have the formal way to address somebody like an old person, like an unknown person. if you want to be polite, you call him or call her usted. So this one you will find it here. That's a personal pronoun, usted. Then you have nosotros, ustedes, and ellos. This would be we, you, and they. But this is the present. This is the present form. Now, what happens when we want to talk about the future? When we want to express a future form, a future sentence in Spanish, we need to use an auxiliary verb. Tenemos que utilizar un verbo auxiliar. Now, let me tell you something. Future is one of the easiest tenses in Spanish because you need to change only one verb, which is always the same. Okay, you will see in a moment. And then you have to use this form like infinitivos. This is very easy actually, and in this lesson I hope that after this lesson you are able to use the present and you are able to use the future, okay? So let me show you how to use the future. There are two ways to express future. The first one, like you have it here, it's quite difficult a little bit. Not also, I'll show you it's not that difficult, but you need to change more like parts of the verb. And the second one, which is surprisingly the most popular one and a little bit longer than this one. In Spanish, if you go to any Spanish-speaking country, you will find that most people prefer to use this form instead of this other one. Because this is easier to express, easier to communicate, and also easier to remember. In this case, we have to use this verb. This is the verb to go. Then you have to use a preposition. The preposition is a. Sometimes this preposition is like to, like in English. And then you have this INF, means infinitivo, which is the simple form of the verb as it comes, with no person, with no tense, nothing, right? Now, you don't need to conjugate both verbs because this is the basic structure of future, but you don't have to change this part of the verb. You only have to change this one, and here is where it probably you find it a little bit more complex, because you have to change this verb into the different persons, right? And it goes like this. You have to say voy, to say go, vas, va, vamos, van, this is an A, and van. So it goes like this. You say yo voy a, tú vas a, él va a, nosotros vamos a, ustedes, ellos van a, plus infinitive. So let me add the preposition here. I say a, and then you have to use one infinitive. Like in the sentence, when you say I'm going to eat, you say voy a comer. Comer, as you can see, I am not changing this verb. So if you want to make sentences like I'm going to, so you say voy a comer, I'm going to eat. Voy a estudiar, I'm going to study. Voy a viajar, I'm going to travel. And as you can see here, you can add any other infinitivo that you want, right? So this is how you make how you express sentences in the future, in futuro, right? That's how you call it in Spanish. There is also another way to talk about the future. However, this form is not as popular as this one. Actually, this first form is more like literary, like you can find it in books. You can find it in, I guess, in some specific contexts that are not like daily usage, oral language. However, it's very common to find in books. So you may find it, for example, when you're reading a novel, when you're reading like a tale or story or something, and then you will find this form. What is this form? So I'll show you. Conjugation in Spanish can be difficult sometimes because you need to make all these different changes to the verb in the simple form, what we call the infinitivo. Now, if you are like a little bit familiarized with the Spanish conjugation, you know that most of the time you have to remove this last part of the verb. You take it out and then you add these new forms, these new endings, such as in this verb. This is the presente form, right? This is the present tense. So we say comer, como, comes, come, comemos, comen, comen. In all of them, I am removing the ending, this part. You can remove also ar, such as in the verb hablar, for example, or in the verb vivir. So you remove the last part, ar, ir. Now, luckily for learners, luckily for you guys who are learning Spanish, this future tense is actually easier, because this is, I would say, one of the few that instead of removing the last part, instead of like taking it away and using new endings, actually you add it. So that's one advantage, right? Like you add an ending to the original form. That's one thing. And the second thing, guess what? You don't have to change like for each of the endings. Like, of course, here you can see this one is for so you change to o, s, e, hemos, en. However, for example, if you have another one such as this one, right? For example, we can say, instead of saying comer, you have a verb like this one. You say hablar, which is the verb to speak. So when you speak a language, yo hablo español, yo hablo francés. So this one has ar, so you also have to change the last part, right? Here. So I told you they are kind of like, once you remember these endings, you will master conjugation, like, and everything will be easier in your life, in your Spanish life. So, hablar, right? Here we're talking about hablar. So right here, we say, yo hablo, then you say, hablas, habla, hablamos, hablan. Why am I changing? Because this one is ar. But here, in the future tense, in the futuro, you don't have to change for each of them. You actually do the same with all of them. So this is actually really good. And whenever I tell this to students, they always they say, oh really? Are you kidding me? They get really happy because this is easier, right? You don't need to like see if it's ar and then you remember o, as, a, amos, an, or if it's and you remember o, es, e, emo. No. Here is the same for all of them. But let me repeat. Here in the future, you don't remove it. Actually, you add it. How is that? Look, I showed you the conjugation of this future tense, which I repeat is more literary. You find it in books. You find it in in other contexts, right? But mainly it's a literary form. Okay. Actually, if you use this in spoken Spanish, you will sound quite a little bit strange. You will sound a little bit like if you were kind of a poet or something. It sounds strange. Not even in Spanish. No one uses it actually in spoken language. So you say, for example, here, let's say the verb would be hablar. We say hablar, as you can see, is the same form. I'm telling you, you don't remove the ending. And then you add here e. So you say hablaré. Yeah, it has a graphic stress mark here. You say hablaré. And then I repeat, you don't remove, you leave it there. So you say hablar, and then you say hablarás. So you will speak, you're going to speak, or sounds like that. Like in Spanish, this is the future form. Okay, hablarás, then you say hablará, hablaremos, hablarán, hablarán. And guess what? The same thing happens with and the same thing happens with ir. So for example, the verb, if we go back to our verb, that would be comer. So you say comeré, comerás, comerá, comeremos, comerán, comerán. And if you use it with ir, for example, the verb vivir, you say viviré, vivirás, vivirá, viviremos, vivirán, vivirán. So there you go. This is the future form. This is one form, and the other one is the one I explained before. Now, let me just write it here, okay? So this one, I would say, like, it's more like literary. There might be some other, like, really specific cases where you have to use this one, but mainly it's like you find it in books, you find it in texts, and then, or like you find it in texts, or also you can find it in like very formal documents. And this one is let's say this one is a popular one, okay? This one is the guy that everybody loves because it's a popular form, okay? So among the tenses, everyone likes the future because it's so easy to make, right? It's so easy to make. So here you go. Now I'll show you some example sentences where you can use these future tense. Also, like together with some time expressions. We also have time expressions in Spanish, right? Like in English when you say next week, the following week, or in 2022, those things. In Spanish, we also have time expressions to talk about the future. Now, the most common one and the first one that we learn, and the one that usually comes in the easy sentences in books and on the net, you will always find this one. This one is a word for morning, like tomorrow, sorry, for tomorrow. Mañana. Why did I say morning? Wow, because this is also the word for morning, okay? Like mañana, like in the morning you say en la mañana, but tomorrow you say mañana. It doesn't have en la. So once again, I repeat, en la mañana means in the morning, but mañana means tomorrow, okay? So how do you say tomorrow morning? Yeah, you say mañana en la mañana. I think it's easier, right? Mañana en la mañana. Mañana en la mañana voy a desayunar café y huevos. En 3 días. In 3 days. In una semana. In 1 week, right? En una semana. En 5 meses, in 5 months. So from here, in 5 months, en 5 meses. Like, looks similar, right? So you say day, week, months. 3 días, una semana, 5 meses. Now remember, numbers match the noun, right? So in this case, semana, it's a female word. So you say una. Then here you have 2 more words. Number 1, el siguiente, and this one, el próximo. So this is the next one or the following. El siguiente mes, el próximo mes. And of course, you can use here the corresponding female forms, right? So if you're talking about the next week, you would say la siguiente semana. Following week, you would say la próxima semana, okay? Now I'll show you another expression which sometimes is confusing for students because it has one word that refers to, like like some people see it before and they say, what? Look, at the beginning of this lesson I told you that we also have one word that is pasado, that is tiempo pasado, which is the past form. That's the past tense, pasado. But we have one expression in Spanish which means the day after tomorrow. How do you say the day after tomorrow? This is how you say it. Pasado mañana. Pasado mañana means the day after tomorrow. So some students find it difficult because they see, like, as soon as they see the word pasado, they say, oh, this is the past form. Pasado mañana means something like tomorrow past, like tomorrow, and past, like they get confused. Don't worry, my advice is you don't really need to think about the grammar of these expressions. Just remember and remember like vocabulary, right? So this will be pasado mañana, the day after tomorrow, okay? I guess this is the use of the future forms. Now what about you? ¿Qué vas a hacer en 3 días? What are you going to do in 3 days? What will you do the following week? What are you going to do in 5 months? ¿Qué vas a hacer en 5 meses? ¿Qué vas a hacer mañana, right? What will you do? ¿Qué vas a hacer? Now let me tell you something. In English and in Spanish, the usage of these forms is actually different. In English, when you use the form going to and the form will, or maybe all the rest of the forms that you have to talk about the future, like may, like might, and also like sometimes you can use the present continuous form to talk about the future, like I'm traveling next month, right? That doesn't work in Spanish, okay? So actually, Spanish is easier in grammar to talk about the future, because we basically use like any of those two forms, be it literary or be it informal, like the more spoken, like more oral form, the one I show you, the one with ir plus a plus infinitivo, and they basically mean the same, right? There is no big difference in the meaning. So there you go. These are the expressions that you can use to talk about the future in Spanish. Now, if you like this lesson, if you wish to have like any other lesson about any specific topic, like something that you are finding struggling in your daily Spanish learning, please let me know in the comments. Subscribe to this channel so that I can keep uploading new videos for learning Spanish. And please give a thumbs up, okay? Like it, and see you next time. Hasta luego.